Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. After my win in the last three-player game, the position in the standing looks very good for me. Especially also because Envy was already able to win his two-player game against Erock. With that, I'm in the lead in the standings with 3 points ahead of Erock, but I have one less game finished. So with that, in order to win the group, I now only need to win one of the two remaining two-player games against Erock and Envy. And if you remember the clicker rating that I showed at the beginning of this World Championship stage, then you might remember that for me, the two-player games might still be my strong suit because I'm still the highest rated player in two-player games. But both Erock and Envy had a significantly weaker position in the rankings in two-player, so that might be the weak spot. So I was quite confident going into those two-player games, but those, of course, are still very strong opponents, and yeah, it will still be a difficult task for me to get that win. And let's see if I maybe can get it already in the next game that we are taking a look at today, which will be the two-player game against Envy. And now, without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game, I'm playing in the second position, and first of all, we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And it's interesting because there are almost no culture leaders in the game, but the one that is in the game, Shakespeare, is of course quite an influential one. But there's no Gaudi, no Bach, no Marlene, no Fleming, no Chaplin, also no Hollywood, but there is Shakespeare. So Shakespeare could end up playing an important part in this game. When we take a look at those leaders and wonders, there's in age 3 also Gandhi to hide behind, there's Churchill for the military, but no Manhattan Project. We have the Red Cross. There are some lab leaders as maybe an alternative strategy with Bill Gates, Einstein, Sid Meier, and then there's also Pierre. In H2, then as said, we have Shakespeare as the big culture leader, but no other culture leaders. We have Newton, but no Nobel. We have James Watt, who is not really that strong in two-player games. Maria Theresa is there, the two military action leaders, Napoleon and Robespierre. On the wonder side, they are maybe also not the strongest ones. I mean, those culture wonders can be quite decent in two-player games. The Gremlin in the right situation can be quite strong, but there's no ocean liner service, no railroad, no Suez Canal. In H1, we have the two strength wonders with Great Wall and Nimichi Castle. There's the St. Peter's Basilica to help with the happy faces, but no Forbidden City. And there's also the Machu Picchu, according to Wolves, who I recorded a video. I recorded a video with him not that long ago, and he mentioned that he likes to take a look at the Machu Picchu at the beginning of a two-player game, and let's take a look at if it is in the game or not. We have no military action leaders in H1. There is Gutenberg, but no Leonardo. We have Nostradamus and Barbarossa to help with the strength. Michelangelo, maybe together with some iron production and going for a bunch of wonders. And then Columbus, maybe together with a strong colony, but there's not really a lot of colonization payoff in this game. And also the one wonder that isn't revealed from HA is the Acropolis, which is also quite relevant. Envy has maybe a relatively clear pick here, goes for Hammurabi, and now it's the question, what do I want to go for? And it came then down to a decision between taking the Engineering Genius or taking the Library. Of course, I could also take the Roman Roads. I could take that wonder even together with the yellow card. The problem is, if I take one of those yellow cards, then Engineering Genius and the Library both drop to one civil action for Envy, which I felt like wouldn't really be a good outcome for me. Of course, I could also take the Roman Roads and float a civil action, but if I go for something like this, then I think it's maybe better anyway to go for the Library and take an option away from Envy. And at the end, the Library is also what I went for. I didn't like it too much to leave that Engineering Genius for Envy, but the thing is, if I take that Library away, then there are 4 cards revealed, so there's at least a chance that the Acropolis is not revealed. If the Acropolis is revealed, it's of course not that great. Envy gets it together with the Engineering Genius, but maybe with the absence of all of those culture leaders, the Acropolis is not necessarily in the that strong as maybe in other games. Of course, it, together with Shakespeare, it can of course still get a culture-heavy game, so it can be quite strong nonetheless in a two-player game, but maybe not as strong as maybe in some other two-player games. And there's also a chance that the Acropolis might not be revealed. And then when we take a look at the wonders from H1, there are maybe not the greatest wonders for early in the game. Great Wall, Himeji Castle, St. Peter's Basilica, maybe all are better to finish a little bit later. Only the Machu Picchu would be quite nice to get as an early wonder. So I thought it might be a nice shot at maybe to maybe give myself a chance that the Acropolis isn't revealed. And I was also eyeing Cleopatra because I of course also need to think about what leader I want to go for. And if I take the Engineering Genius and MV goes for the library, of course the Acropolis might be revealed, but the Acropolis doesn't have that many steps. It might still work fine with Cleopatra, but there might also be no wonder revealed, and then I might have to go for Moses, who of course can be fine, but at the end I thought library plus Cleopatra is a very fine combination. There's a chance that MV doesn't get any wonder from HA, and with that I was willing to give him the Engineering Genius for one civil action here. So I just go for the library. Now it's MV's turn. And sadly the Acropolis is revealed, so we'll have a chance to take that at the next turn. He goes for electing Hammurabi, building a mine, increasing his population, taking the frugality and the Engineering Genius, letting Hippocrates stay on 2 civil actions so that he isn't an option for me. Or at least maybe a too expensive option. I then go for Cleopatra, and I will start here by building a step and building the 3rd mine. Building the 2nd lab can also be sometimes correct, but I just feel like it's a little bit smoother if you start with building the mine in the 1st step, because then you can at the next turn build the 2nd lab, and in 2 turns you will have exactly enough resources to finish the library and can get your economy going very quickly without being dependent on any developments. And there's also another reason to maybe start with the 3rd mine here. As said, there is Shakespeare in the game. He could be very influential. If there's a chance to maybe get into printing presses before having built the 2nd lab, that could be quite strong. So I think that's another reason here to, instead of starting with the 2nd lab and using Cleo's resources, starting with the 3rd mine and using Cleo's resource on the 1st step of the library. I draw 2 cards, the Raiders and the Immigration. And MV gets an early monarchy here, so that's of course quite strong with Hammurabi, and he makes an interesting decision here. After increasing his population and building the 2nd lab, he doesn't have any civil actions left, meaning he skips the Acropolis here. And it is definitely understandable, because the Acropolis and Hammurabi are a little bit of an anti-synergy in the sense that it is quite strong to do a revolution with Hammurabi, but of course if you have the Acropolis you don't really want to go for a revolution. So interestingly, MV probably plans to just go for a revolution at the next turn and is then willing to rather wait for one of those H1 wonders, and I think it can be quite a decent choice. Also with not taking the Acropolis lets the Alchemy stay on 2 civil actions for me, which could be an interesting card for me to have to maybe make further use out of Cleo's resources. And yeah, so I think a fine decision by him. Now it is my turn. I don't push, and instead I will increase my population, build a 2nd lab, take the irrigation, which is an important technology in 2-player games especially, and then I have still 1 civil action left. I could just increase my population, but I would go into consumption very early, and at the end I decided to pick up this urban growth, having some additional resource for later on. I'm not totally certain about this choice. It's not completely clear how quickly I will be able to use this urban growth, but I accumulate even a little bit more food. And also I make it that those 2 irons move a little bit more forward in the card row. Sadly, I can't really make it that those are on the 6th and 7th spot, which would be quite nice, because then MV has to make a decision. Either he goes for that very nice early revolution at the cost of missing out on the iron, or he has to delay it and take the iron, but sadly I kind of can't achieve that. What I can achieve though is that with taking another card, now if MV does the revolution, he still of course has a civil action thanks to Hammurabi, and now he can't really take the alchemy, because then I could deny the iron from him, meaning I, with doing it like that, should have a good chance of just getting an alchemy at the next turn, which, despite of course with Shakespeare you might want to go for printing presses, with having Cleo it could still be quite strong to maybe go into alchemies, and with that, with accumulating some more food at the end, the urban growth felt like a fine decision. I draw some cards, a colonization card and a call to arms. MV just goes for the revolution and then takes the irrigation. Maybe he wouldn't have taken the alchemy anyway, because the irrigation, the 2nd copy, might be the more important card. And yeah, so maybe that wasn't the biggest reason, but at least he didn't really have the option if he wants to secure himself a copy of iron here. Now it is my turn. I need 2 civil actions here to get out of corruption. I would not have the option here to increase my population and build a warrior, because the worker, of course, would be unhappy. Of course, I could maybe try to seed and hope that it helps with corruption, but chances are that it would rather maybe make it even more difficult to get out of corruption. And it's important here how many civil actions I have left after getting out of corruption, because I was not too happy what I saw in the card draw here, because I think Envy at his next turn has some really strong options available for him. He will get an iron for 1 civil action. There's a Code of Laws available on the card draw that if I don't deny it, he will be able to take. And then there is Machu Picchu and the Engineering Genius 1 coming down the row. So the Machu Picchu I definitely can't deny, so that wonder he will be able to get for certain. And then there are so many strong cards available, and if he gets Engineering Genius and Machu Picchu, will be able to finish the Machu Picchu extremely cheaply as a first wonder. I think that's very strong situation where the Machu Picchu is just insanely strong, actually. I don't often go for that wonder. I think you can get punished for it. I think it can sometimes be a bit tricky to pull it off nicely, but I think here MV has a very strong Machu Picchu setup, with not having had any HA wonder and with being able to finish it with both the Engineering Genius and getting Irrigation and Iron for 1 civil action. So I wasn't really happy about seeing all of this, and the question is, what do I do here? Because after finishing the library, I have 2 civil actions left. I thought about just taking the Code of Laws, at least denying that card from MV. And also making sure that I have a way to get a 5th civil action, because if I don't take it, I might be stuck on 4 civil actions for quite a while. The problem being, of course, that if I take the Code of Laws here, I don't have a civil action left to take the iron. And while sometimes it can be fine to play in bronze mines, in 2-player games, I think I would be at quite a disadvantage if I would play on bronze mines against MV with a Machu Picchu and 8 resource production. I think that would be quite challenging, so I didn't really want to miss out on the iron. I thought about if maybe it could even be an idea to take corruption here and secure myself both the Code of Laws and the iron, but it also feels extremely expensive. I thought about if maybe it could even be an idea to deny the Engineering Genius, because I think that card is just providing MV such a great value here, but it's unclear how quickly I will be able to use it. And at the end, I at least thought that MV maybe at least doesn't have the most science available, so going into Irrigation, Iron and Code of Laws will be somewhat tricky. So if I don't take the Code of Laws, it's bad because I don't have it, and Envy might at some point be able to go for it, but at least that might take a while until he will be able to go for the Code of Laws. So I felt like I don't necessarily have to deny it here, it's just bad that I don't get it myself, and at the end I rather wanted to secure myself a copy of Iron, and as I only have to pay 1 civil action for that, I also can secure myself a copy of Alchemy, because the only leader that's coming down the row is Michelangelo, who I thought about maybe I can even go for him and go for some wonders later on. But I might have Cleo for a little bit longer, and then I thought it's maybe nice to have the alchemy and having another way to use Cleo's resources. And also now that I've missed out on the Code of Laws, and now that MV generally I thought will just get an extremely strong setup, I thought maybe it could be worthwhile to hope for an early H2 government form, because if I'm stuck on despotism for longer, the game might really be looking bad. But with an early H2 government form, I could get quite a boost in H2, and that getting that might be a bit easier if I maybe go for alchemies first and then for iron later on. And so I at the end decided that I want to have the alchemy available, and then that just felt like the best thing for myself. The Code of Laws, maybe I don't have to deny that urgently. The Engineering Genius maybe, but it doesn't do that much for myself. So that felt like the best option at the end, but I really was not liking it at all that MV gets now Iron, Code of Laws, Engineering Genius, and the Machu Picchu all for 1 civil action. I felt like that will just be an insanely strong setup for him, and it will be a bit of a challenge playing against that. I draw the new deposits and the rebellion. I think MV's turn is relatively clear here. He just takes all of those cards, and then he gets out of corruption by increasing his population and building a step of the Machu Picchu, and thanks to the Engineering Geniuses, he has even enough resources to just finish the Machu Picchu at the next turn and already go for an iron upgrade, really getting a big boost to his production going. Now it is my turn. I don't push here, and as you can see, I actually decide to take the Himeji Castle here, because I felt like I can't leave this Himeji Castle to MV. MV could have a very solid turn with just finishing Machu Picchu, going for one iron upgrade, and thanks to Hammurabi and having the monarchy, he would still have enough civil actions left to take the Himeji Castle afterwards, and that would allow him to invest the resources of the Machu Picchu very nicely. And now that the Himeji Castle is gone, there's only the Great Wall left, which can be a fine wonder, but maybe in two-player games, depending on how the game goes, maybe not as strong. I think definitely not as strong as the Himeji Castle most of the times in two-player games. And so at least MV maybe can't that nicely invest the additional resources from the Machu Picchu in an H1 wonder, and the H2 wonders are maybe, of course, fine, especially the Harvard College could be quite strong, and those wonders might also still be quite nice for MV to invest into with his big resource income, but if those are a little bit later, I was hoping that maybe there's a chance that MV will struggle to find something to invest into, and if he gets now, in addition to the big economical boost, also the strength and the culture and the big defense ability of the Himeji Castle, I just felt like that might be too strong. And so I was willing to go for the Himeji Castle here, even though that's quite a bit annoying for myself, but at least what I can do is to build a step of the Himeji Castle, spending all of my resources, using Cleo's resource also, and then only having food corruption. If I would have gone for a turn where I would get out of corruption, I would have to increase my population, then that would basically cost me 1 food, now it's cost me 2 food, so corruption-wise it's not even that bad. And with having the Himeji Castle myself, I was hoping that at least maybe I can get a little bit of a culture bonus or culture lead going, and also maybe if I should be the one managing to go for Shakespeare, maybe then the Himeji Castle can help me defending myself, and then that could be a nice setup to maybe fight against this big Machu Picchu production. While I had some hopes to get the culture lead, I also felt like that now that I have the Himeji Castle taken away, MV might just go for Nostradamus. Nostradamus might offer him something similar, additional strength and culture. He has 3 military actions, so I thought, okay, maybe he will now go for Nostradamus. If he doesn't go for him, I thought that I very much would like to go for Nostradamus, and yeah, then together with those 2 wonders, maybe indeed get quite a bit of a culture lead going. I also thought about to take and elect Michelangelo before taking the Himeji Castle. Then I would actually have a resource and a food corruption, so he basically would give me an additional food instead of an additional resource here. But I just felt like it's maybe not a game where I will take a lot of wonders, and I rather wanted to leave myself open for Nostradamus, and if I don't get him, maybe Gutenberg could actually still be quite nice, as setting up for printing press could be quite nice, even when I should still decide to go into alchemies. I draw 2 cards, 2 tactics. MV Seeds, the first event is pushed, and sadly it's the development of religion. So that's of course not great. But it's of course also the danger of not having a free population. But now MV sadly will get the additional culture income from the religion, while I will miss out on it. So my hopes of maybe at least getting a bit of a culture lead are dwindling again. MV this turn can finish the Machu Picchu, takes Nostradamus, elects him, goes for an iron, and goes for an iron upgrade, is now at 6 resource income. Now it's my turn, and here I thought about, should I go for iron production first, should I go for an alchemy upgrade first? I don't have enough resources to finish the Himeji Castle here. I thought about going for iron first, because now that I'm not able to go for Nostradamus, I thought Gutenberg might now be the best leader available for me, and then of course it could be worthwhile to maybe delay those alchemy upgrades. But at the end I decided I will still go for the alchemies, use Cleo's resources, and while I maybe can't use that many Gutenberg actions to go for some more alchemy upgrades, I felt like maybe it is indeed just very much worthwhile to set up a printing press, and that I can use Gutenberg for that. And also, as I said earlier, I really maybe have to hope for an early H2 government form here in order to fight against this Machu Picchu. And for that also, as I said earlier, it's maybe better to go for alchemies first, so that's what I went for. I go for 1 alchemy upgrade, and then I will increase my population twice to get out of corruption. I don't take any cards in a row, meaning that Envy needs to take 2 cards in order to anti-age. It might be worth it for him denying me a civil action and a resource from Cleo, but at least he has to put a little bit of work in. Also, I decided to reveal the medieval army tactic, maybe a bit questionable, as it might make it more likely that MV takes the knights away, but there are 2 copies of cavalryman anyway, and I felt like there is probably not a lot of strength pushing going on in the next few turns. I have Dimitri Castle to defend myself, and so I just wanted to have the tactic available using an H1 military action instead of having to keep it in hand and revealing it during H2. I draw a colonization card. Now it's Envy's turn. He seats, opens the development of politics. I draw the uncertain borders of phalanx tactic and an aggression. Envy this turn starts some food income, goes for an iron upgrade, and then he takes the knights and the frugality. He will anti-age, and it does hurt me, but at least I think he has to do some inefficient stuff in order to end the age here, because instead of the frugality, he could have gone for another food upgrade, another resource upgrade. He could have increased his population. I think all of those actions would normally be better than taking the frugality, so at least it's a bit of a cost for him to anti-age, but losing the civil action, losing Cleo's resource is definitely hurtful for me, so I think it's probably the correct choice for Envy here. Also, the drama stays in 2 civil actions now, so I can't take that card that easily and maybe have to wait for an opera in order to maybe go for a Shakespeare setup. I lose Cleopatra here, and then this turn I will go for Gutenberg. I will elect Gutenberg. I will use him to go for a lab upgrade for free with the urban growth, and that makes it that with the remaining 2 actions I can start going for an iron upgrade. Sadly, it means that I'm missing 2 signs to get into an H2 government form, but I still just wanted to get the iron production going. At the next turn I can either go for more iron upgrades, or I also have the option to finish the Dimitri Castle, and with taking no cards from the row apart from Gutenberg, I make it that the printing press stays on 2, meaning MV either has to take 1 for 2 now, or I can deny the other copy at the next turn, and then who knows when the journalisms will be revealed. There might be a chance that I can maybe take the option away from MV to make Shakespeare work for himself, and so I thought it's important to let the printing press stay on 2 civil actions here. And yeah, so that was my turn. I planned on then from the next turn on to use Gutenberg in order to set up a printing press. I draw some cards, the Prosperity and a Colonization card. MV seats and opens the development of planning. The options for the development of planning are markets, agriculture, and warfare. So basically you can decide between a free warrior or 2 food or 2 resources. MV interestingly takes the free warrior. With that makes it that he gets the strength lead very easily. And and he probably has enough resources and food to work with. He indeed makes sure to take the printing press here, also takes the breakthrough, so he of course also knows about the importance of Shakespeare in this particular Leader and Wonders mix, and is not willing to gamble on getting journalisms at some point, so he decides to take the printing press for 2 civil actions here. Now it's my turn. There's no early government form on the row yet, but there's a strategy coming down the row, which of course also is quite an important technology, especially with me being stuck on 2 military actions. But I am not willing to take it for 3 civil actions here. I think that would be too expensive. I rather will actually let it stay on 3 civil actions for MV, making it quite expensive to take it for him, and then I might at the next turn maybe go for it. I will use Gutenberg to take the printing press here. Then, thanks to the additional resources that I took from the development of planning, I am now able to actually go for 2 iron upgrades, completing my iron mine upgrades, and then I will actually increase my population and also develop the irrigation with my last 2 civil actions, as I didn't really want to take any of the cards. If I take the rich land, then as said, the strategy drops down to 2 civil actions, but maybe that might not even be the most important reasoning to not take the rich land, because there's also a Kremlin. If I let it stay on 2 civil actions, or if MV needs 3 civil actions to take it, he can't take and finish it. If I would take the Ridgeland here, then the Gremlin, or maybe use the last 2 civil actions to take the breakthrough, which is maybe a nice card to take away from MV, but then out of the sudden he could take and finish the Gremlin. He has lots of resources with the Machu Picchu, and I actually think the Gremlin is quite a strong thing for him here to invest into, and so I thought that might even be the more important reason to not take any card from the row. The strategy is of course also a valid reason, but a Gremlin might be even more important here, because not allowing him to just take and finish that wonder might be very important. So I didn't really want to take a Ridgeland, and with me thinking that I have a good chance of getting the strategy at the next turn, I also didn't want to take the warfare, and so I just spent all of my civil actions and my civilization, even though developing the irrigation means that in case there's an H2 government form on the road the next turn, I can't go for that government form and develop the printing press with Gutenberg, but that maybe is not too bad anyway, and so I was fine just developing the irrigation. I could have also took the printing press normally and now already developed it with Gutenberg. I do think that could be a valid alternative, but I don't know when I will be able to replace Gutenberg. Maybe Shakespeare is a bit late, and I think I definitely won't commit to any other leader than Shakespeare as long as I still have a chance to get Shakespeare. And then maybe I have Gutenberg for a bit longer anyway, and I didn't want to already develop the printing press, as I then at some point might run out of actions. I could have maybe pushed the prosperity at the beginning of my turn, as I probably will be able to use the food. Well, I will need food a lot more urgently than MV, but I also don't have any happy faces at the moment, and so I decided to not push here. MV seeds, the event deck flips now, the development of civil life is revealed. MV will use that, I think, to increase his population, and he will still go for the Gremlin despite me letting it stay on the 3 civil actions for him. He then, in order to get out of corruption, has to build a warrior. The strategy will now stay on 2 civil actions, but it is actually now quite challenging to go for the strategy, because as you might notice, there are 2 copies of opera behind it, and if I take the strategy and not take any of those operas, then MV can just deny the opera, and Shakespeare won't be revealed yet. As you will be able to see, what is actually revealed is this copy of Republic, which I think I have to go into immediately. I can't allow myself to be stuck on 4 civil actions for any time longer. So I go for the Republic here. I develop it, but that means I have only 3 civil actions left, and I think, as much as I of course would like it to have the strategy together with the Republic, I think it's not an option to go for that here, because then MV can just deny the opera from me, and I think I really was hoping that I might be the one to get Shakespeare here, because MV, with having now that many resources to invest into getting the Gremlin, maybe soon getting, who knows, Eiffel Tower, maybe operas, I just felt like I might be at a disadvantage if I have to fight against this normally, and I might need the big Shakespeare discounts and the big Shakespeare production in order to have good chances. If I should get Shakespeare, I think I indeed would be very fine about my position, also having Demichi Castle. But without Shakespeare it could be challenging, and so I think I can't take the strategy here. I need to leave myself open for opera, and with that I actually, I used the development of civil life at the beginning of my turn to build an H1 farm directly, going for a 3rd farm, and that allows me that I have now just enough resources to actually go for 2 more upgrades, making it that I'm at 0 plus 4 food income. So from now on I will get a lot of food production going, which I think is important. And so I thought that might be a nice way to actually use the development of civil life, and now it actually also paid off in a sense to already have developed the irrigation, as otherwise it wouldn't have been possible for me to actually use the development of civil life to build an H1 farm directly. In general, I'm not sure if I ever used the development of civil life for that kind of action. Normally you just increase your population, maybe develop a technology, maybe build a 2nd lab if you haven't built it yet. But building a 3rd farm and 3rd irrigation farm is it's maybe not that often that you can use the development of civil life for that. Then I have 1 civil action left, and I think the most important card here is the architecture, that has just the potential to save lots of resources over the course of the game, maybe also some civil actions in case I will go for some more wonders. There's also the Red Cross in H3, for which the architecture could be important. So of course an urban growth might also be nice to have, but I think the architecture has just a lot more potential long term. I keep my colonization cards and draw a war territory and a spy. MV seeds and opens the vast territory. At least I can bid a somewhat high amount for it thanks to my colonization cards, but MV is able to win it with having already gotten a bunch of warriors. At least he has to pay 2 of them, but him now also getting an influx of yellow tokens, I was not really that happy to see, especially because it will make it easier for him to handle the unhappy face from the Kremlin. He will go for the Code of Laws, finishes the Kremlin, is now at 7 civil actions from 4 military actions, so the short time where I had maybe a civil action advantage with the Republic is now over. Now MV has catched up again. I think the Kremlin is very strong in the situation, and then he increases his population a bunch of times to get out of corruption, doesn't even bother taking the strategy here, but makes sure to secure himself a copy of Opera. And of course, at this time it got more and more exciting. Will Shakespeare be revealed after MV's turn? Who will be the one to get Shakespeare? That might now be quite influential in this position. And Shakespeare isn't revealed yet, so no chance for me to take him yet. Instead, I will use Gutenberg to develop the printing press, use my resources to finish the Magic Castle, and then I have quite a bunch of civil actions left. And I could, of course, use them to just take a bunch of cards, maybe Cannon, Rifleman, Breakthrough, Opera, maybe another card from the 2 civil action area, but the problem is, in a situation like that, in a 2-player game where there is one very important key card that might just really shape the game depending on when exactly it will be revealed, it is maybe a good advice to try to not take too many cards from the row, and with that I decided to actually go for the Eiffel Tower here. Of course, there are some cards that I definitely want to have. The Rifleman, maybe of course I could play it very greedily and skip that card, but with me hoping that I might be the one to get Shakespeare, I thought if I denied the Rifleman from IMV, maybe he has an even harder time to try punishing me militarily. And so I thought with both of us having no swordsman, the Rifleman is just an important technology here. I take the cannons, I take the Opera, and then I go for the Eiffel Tower. Of course, you could argue maybe I should have taken the Breakthrough instead of the Rifleman, just playing it very greedily. But yeah, I think the Rifleman just might end up being very important. And then the Eiffel Tower is, of course, an expensive wonder, but at least building those printing presses with Gutenberg and hopefully also the architecture discount will be extremely cheaply. The Eiffel Tower allows me to go for even a bit more culture income without needing any population anywhere. Then I actually, once I finish that, have 7 culture income just from my wonders. The happy face will be useful, so I felt like the Eiffel Tower is a nice wonder to have here. And I was willing to take it also in order to not reveal too many cards after my turn. Now there will only be 4 revealed, so the chance of hopefully not that high that Shakespeare will be revealed. And if he is revealed, it's at least guaranteed that he at least stays in the 3 civil action area. I again keep my colonization cards, and I also draw 2 colonies. MV seeds and opens the border conflict. And I was not sure if I should be happy about that event or if I should be unhappy about that event. I will actually at the end decide to destroy an alchemy with that and basically rerouting that worker into a printing press. But losing, of course, 2 science income is quite costly. On the other hand, the 3 additional resources that I gained from that event, thanks to being strongest and weakest at the same time with MV having Nostradamus, the 3 additional resources will allow me to finish the Eiffel Tower turn earlier. At least gives me the option to now go for printing press with Gutenberg while still being able to go for the Eiffel Tower at the turn after. So the resources are actually quite useful. Of course, losing the science income is still quite bad. So I was not sure if I should be happy or unhappy about that event. MV this turn will go for the printing press, just spills 3 of them, going from 2 to 5 science income, also getting a lot of culture income going. He starts to already have quite a big culture lead. So yeah, I was really hoping that I might be the one getting Shakespeare, because I really didn't feel good about my chances if MV should be the one getting Shakespeare here with his big production, with his many population, having irrigation, Machu Picchu, and the vast territory. Interestingly, he then takes the revolutionary idea instead of the breakthrough for 1, maybe wants to deny it from me. Not sure if he really needs the science up front here, but of course, maybe being able to develop the opera at the next turn if I maybe get Shakespeare, then maybe it could be nice for him to just already at the next turn be able to follow up with his culture income and go for operas. it's my turn. I didn't want to seed any of those colonies. As you can see, still no Shakespeare revealed, so Shakespeare is letting us wait here a little bit. I will then develop the architecture to get the discount for building a printing press with Gutenberg. And then it works quite well because now I have just enough food to increase my population twice, and spending all of that food is just enough to get me out of corruption, so that at the next turn I will be able to finish the Eiffel Tower while actually going for another printing press with Gutenberg. So that I think works quite well. Now I have still 4 civil actions left, and that's the question, what do I want to take with those civil actions? I first of all decided to take the patriotism, because with my 2 military actions, I think the additional military action from the patriotism is just extremely important, and not necessarily that I want to use it quickly, but it might be more important to just have that card in hand, because it makes me threaten a lot more strength. If I will end up being the one getting Shakespeare, and maybe envy tries to punish me militarily, now that I have the patriotism in hand, I will all the time, as long as I don't do any other military investment, I at least will all of the time be able to threaten to go into fortifications, to threaten to go into hussars. Without this additional military action, I would not have enough military actions to build 2 cannons and reveal a tactic. So I think that just makes me a lot more threatening in case envy tries to set up any wars against me. And then I have still 2 civil actions left, and I actually decided to go for the team sports here. I was not too happy about this decision. Maybe I could also just take the frugality here, but then I still have a civil action left. Maybe it's fine to have the frugality, but I very likely will need a happy face solution. There's at least Pierre in H3 who can be quite a strong leader. There's Pierre together with the internet. And at the end I was fine with taking those team spots, also with Envy still needing a happy face solution. Of course there's now an organized religion left that he will be able to go for, but yeah, of course it now also means that there will be 5 new cards revealed, something that I wasn't too comfortable with, but yeah, I also didn't know how I can use my civil actions efficiently here if I don't take any other card from the row. So at the end I went with the team spots. Maybe I could have also just taken the frugality and even floated the last civil action, or maybe taking the justice system in hand, but I think I don't have enough steins here to justify the justice system. So of course I was really praying to Vlada here that maybe Shakespeare is not revealed after my turn and that I will be able to get him at my next turn. I draw 2 cards, tactics, so that's of course nice. Also the civil unrest, and there's no Shakespeare revealed, so the hope is alive that I will be able to get him. MVC, sadly I get hit by the Reign of Terror, which is annoying, but at least I have a free population, so it's not too bad. MV plays the revolutionary idea, increases his population twice with the frugality, develops the knights interestingly, builds the knight, takes the cannons, takes the frugality, disbands a warrior, builds a knight, and takes the efficient upgrade. That of course gets him out of corruption, but with him even being willing to disband a warrior to build in order to build a knight, I kinda had the feeling like he might have a mobile artillery in hand, at least that really makes it look like that. Maybe also has Hussar's tactic, of course. Maybe it all was only to get out of corruption, maybe it was to get stronger. There's now an H2 event coming. I was a bit afraid that maybe MV has just planted something like refugees in there that he now might be able to win. And yeah, so that might be reasons for that. And now, of course, it will be about time that we know who will be the one getting Shakespeare, because there will be 4 cards revealed. A 50-50 shot now that Shakespeare will be revealed at my turn. If he isn't revealed at my turn, then it's basically guaranteed that Envy will go for him, because I could of course try in that case to not take any cards from the row, to leave me with a very small chance that Shakespeare is the very last card in the deck. But yeah, now it might be revealed who will be the player who gets Shakespeare. And sadly there's still no Shakespeare, so he is quite late among the last 4 cards in the deck, and sadly I thought about if there's any option that I just take only, that I make it only 3 new cards are revealed, but I didn't find any option that felt good, and that even if I do it, it's only a 25% chance. Maybe I have to play around it, but it felt a little bit too desperate, and so yeah, I, at this point, sadly had to accept that MV will be the one getting Shakespeare. He has already a culture lead, he has the big Machu Picchu income, he can easily just spam a lot of operas, and I didn't really feel good about my chances at this point. I think I needed Shakespeare maybe at my side. But there are, of course, still some ways how I can make a comeback. I have now the tactic, I have maybe the Michi Castle to sacrifice. Maybe it could actually be a good idea to use the tactic, go for Napoleon, and get at least a culture income from the Eiffel Tower, and then use Napoleon to now maybe try making a military comeback. Maybe that's what I should have tried to do. Instead, I decided to go for Newton here. Newton has the potential to give me also some useful benefits over the next turns. There's maybe a chance that I could get an early multimedia, then he would give me really quite a big science boost, and then with the team sports that I have in hand, I felt like I maybe can hope to get a relatively early Pierre, or maybe also Churchill just for 3 additional culture, and Newton just allowing me to maybe gain some nice economical bonuses. But it's a tough choice. Maybe I should just go for Napoleon, but I can take Newton now for 1 civil action, replace Gutenberg, get the civil action back. I thought that maybe it could be an idea to not commit to a leader, so that MV at least has to pay for Shakespeare, because if I commit to Newton now, then MV of course could just let the Shakespeare stay on the row if he is in the 3 civil action area, and take him for cheaper at the turn after. But I at the end figured that maybe he wants to get Shakespeare going immediately anyway, because then he can get those operas going and get already a big jump in culture income. So at the end I felt like it's not really that big of a deal making him pay maybe the 3 civil actions for Shakespeare. And yeah, maybe I could have let myself open for Napoleon here, tried something with the Napoleonic army tactic, but at the moment I'm still stuck on a low military action count. I don't know how quickly I will have a chance to get something like military theory, and so at the end I rather try to get some value out of Newton. Maybe I can set myself up for the Red Cross, maybe I will be the one getting internet together with Pierre. So I was hoping that one of those things might happen. I use Gutenberg, I will finish the Eiffel Tower, at least gaining now a decent chunk of culture income. I will then go for Newton. I will actually develop the Rifleman, because with MV making sure to get stronger, I, as said, was quite afraid that there might be quite a bad strength event coming, and I have to spend my actions somehow anyway, so I decided to go for Rifleman, play the Patriotism, go for an upgrade, making it that I'm at 5 strength, and we will lose Nostradamus now. So at his turn, he is the weaker one, and then I can see maybe with his reaction how likely it is that there is a strength event coming. Maybe it's a bit uncomfortable for him if I now get stronger, so I decided to go for that. And then I have 4 civil actions left, and I decide to take the reserves, the wave of nationalism, and then I'm not sure why I went for the last civil action to increase my population, because with the Napoleonic army tactic I think I need to take the cavalryman. I think I was just thinking that I might just get a second copy of Cavalryman. MV has a lot of stuff to do, he has already knights, and if I don't take the Cavalryman, at least there's a higher chance that Shakespeare stays on 3 civil actions, and it might actually make quite a difference whether he stays on 3. It might maybe cost MV the chance to build an opera already a turn earlier, which actually costs him 5 culture, maybe makes it more difficult for him to get out of corruption. So I do think those are valid reasons, but if I don't get a cavalryman, or if I maybe have to pay more civil actions for those, it might just backfire. And yeah, maybe I should just take the cavalryman here. I'm not sure why I didn't take them. And no, that was now a bit of a tough decision how I should react to not being the one who gets Shakespeare. Maybe I should try something with Napoleon, just hope that everything goes right, but the thing is, MV has such a big production. I kind of, from him rerouting the warriors into knights, felt like he might have mobile artillery, and with his big production, he will be able to go for Shakespeare while still pulling off a decent defense, and if I then push all into military, I at the end might need such a big war that I might just not be able to pull off, and with my few draws, it's also really not that likely to get a war. Of course, that might be my best out, but I felt like Newton, if I get an early multimedia or something, maybe he will still do some stuff for me. Of course, now I don't have enough science to get into multimedia immediately, which was maybe a mistake. Envy is willing to take Shakespeare even for 3 civil actions. I was happy that he stayed in 3 civil actions, and then he goes for 1 opera, and as you can see, he then takes the organized religion. If Shakespeare would have been on 2, he could have now gone for another opera, and I think that even would have gotten him out of corruption. So it was indeed quite a big difference whether Shakespeare is available for 2 or for 3. I mean, with him being on that spot, he would have been on 3 anyway, even if I would have taken a cavalryman, and now that copy of cavalryman will stay on 2 civil actions. So if I want to secure myself that copy, I now need to spend an additional civil action for it. Of course, Envy could have played it greedily, went for another opera instead of taking the organized religion, but the thing is there are no leaders that give any happy faces, and Envy, I think, with getting Shakespeare has a very strong position anyway, so maybe rather it's better to play it safe for him and secure himself a happy face solution. I see the popularization of science with having a bit of a hope that maybe I have maybe a shot to get into multimedia before that will be revealed. And I also, I mean, now I thought maybe that's no strength event, but maybe also MV just didn't feel like it's worthwhile to fight over that strength event, so I wanted to push. And the other 2 events in my hand are happy face related events, which I didn't want to push. And sadly no strength events that the National Pride for even more culture for MV. I developed a team sports with Newton, built one to fix my happy faces. Maybe I could have also started with going for some operas, but I will now be able to go for team sports and a printing press, and that leaves me with enough science to go for multimedias at the next turn. And a multimedia would give me a very big boost in my science income, which also would then translate in more culture with the popularization of science. So that felt at the end better to me. Also, I can maybe hope to get an early PR or something. And so that was my choice. I have now a bunch of civil actions left. I take the reserves, I take the cavalryman, who I sadly have to pay 2 civil actions for now, and then I actually play the reserves for food already, using my civil actions efficiently, and the food will allow it that I can increase my population twice at the next turn, so it felt like a good idea to use it for food instead of resources here. I draw very early war, so depending on what cards I get, maybe it could actually still be an option to try setting up a war here. It's Envy's turn. He takes the military build-up, preparing himself to potentially defend himself. He builds 2 operas, going up to 21 culture income, takes the revolutionary idea, and then increases his population to get out of corruption. Now it is my turn. I decided to push the impact of competition with those team sports. I was hoping that it might be a beneficial impact for me. And now I actually get rewarded for having increased my strength. The foray is revealed, and I will decide, as you can see, to actually take 1 resource and 2 food out of that. Why I took that amount, we will see at the end of my turn. It will just allow me to smoothly get more population out. I will this turn develop the opera. There's of course a copy of movies, but I don't have enough science for it, so instead I'd rather go for the opera. Maybe I could try with having an early war drawn. I could try to start building up some military, but I really don't know when I get any additional military actions. I felt like I didn't really like my chances trying to set up a war here. And I will even discard that war, which that might be a mistake, to be honest. I think I should at least keep that war in case an opportunity arises, but Envy has the big production, has secured himself the military build-up, and I don't know when I will get more military actions. I felt better about my chances to just now also build up some culture income and hoping that maybe I can either get, for example, a big internet with Pierre and then the Olympic Games from Pierre, or that I can maybe go for the Red Cross plus the internet. If the timing of those wonders is right, it felt like the best out for me here. So I wanted to increase my culture income. I developed the opera, I built an opera, I increased my population, I played the reserves for resources, I built another opera, and now thanks to having taken 2 fruit from the foray, I will have just enough food to increase my population twice at the next turn. And then I have 3 civil actions left, which I will use to take the urban growth and the efficient upgrade, just taking as many resources as I can. I thought about a revolutionary idea, of course, but at the end the resources felt even more important, and I was really hoping for multimedias at the next turn, so that I can maybe go for a bit of a boost with Newton and also increase my culture income even more. As you can see, discard war. I don't get punished for that. I draw a new one immediately, but you will see that I was really not confident to pull off any war here. I draw the impact of happiness. That might be a seedable impact. Sadly, I was again not happy what I saw on the card row, because MV has now a chance to take the democracy, which will give him an even bigger culture boost, and it also allows him to go for even more urban buildings with Shakespeare. So yeah, I was not really happy to see that. He gets the democracy, develops it, takes the air forces, builds a fourth opera going up to 27 culture income, and then he takes the revolutionary radio to have even more science available. He's willing to take corruption here. Now it's my turn. I continue with the pushing. At least I have some impacts drawn early on. The impact of happiness, what I was not too happy about is that sadly both copies of multimedias are very late. Pierre is not available. There's no red cross available, which maybe could give me a chance to take it now, finish it at the next turn, and maybe taking a second wonder like the internet. So yeah, at this point I got more and more desperate and lost more and more hope about my chances to still win this game. And the popularization of science is revealed. I gain at least 2 additional culture out of that, but sadly I don't have any chance any longer to maybe go into multimedia and make that even bigger. I just take the reserves, I take the endowment, securing myself at least those 6 additional culture. I then also take the civil service, because maybe the last out, I still have this war in hand, and I try it if I somehow can construct a scenario where I could make it work, but I just didn't find one. I could save up some science and then go for military theory the next turn, but then I still need those technologies. It just doesn't really work. And I felt my best out might be, and that's what I'm preparing here for, to be able to take and finish the red cross at the next turn. I will now prepare myself that that is possible, and that the internet is late, so that I can go for taking and finishing the red cross, and afterwards the internet, ideally maybe together with Pierre. That was now the biggest out that I saw for myself. And in order to be able to do that, I need that civil service, which is of course also useful for a bunch of impacts. But as you might see, I will actually destroy a lab here, as I don't want to increase my population. I want to save up my food, but I also want to increase my culture income as much as I can. At least I will be at 92, so I'm still somewhat in range. Of course, obviously it is getting bigger every turn. But now that I have the civil service, I can develop it at the next turn, and thanks to Newton, of course, I get the civil action back, meaning I'm at 9 civil action after having developed it. And then, even if the red cross is in the 3 civil action area, I can take it for 6 civil actions, play the reserves, and then I have just 2 civil actions left in order to, with the architecture, just finish the red cross. And that now was the one big out that I saw for myself, that I might be able to go for both red cross and internet. But of course, in order for that to be possible, the timing of those wonders has to be perfect. But that's what I was hoping for now. I have even more wars available now. And sadly, as you can see, the timing is not perfect. MV takes the internet and will be able to finish quite a big internet. He then increases his population, builds another printing press, is now at 30 culture income, develops the organized religion, builds one, fixes his happy faces, which will be useful for him because I've seeded the impact of happiness. I at my turn seed the civil unrest just to get some more culture going. And as you can see, there's sadly no red cross in the row, so I won't be able to take and finish that this turn. At least I can maybe prepare myself so that I can do it at the next turn. The problem is the Pierre is also not revealed, and I very likely won't be able to take and elect Pierre at the next turn and take and finish the red cross. That's almost impossible. And I think there's one possible scenario. If the age doesn't end and both of those cards drop down into the 2 civil action area for me, then I think I could take and elect Pierre and go for the red cross, because I will just save up a lot of food here, and with that I don't need to play the reserves at the next turn in order to take and finish the red cross. But that's a bit of an issue. If the red cross is not here, at least it would have been important if maybe Pierre would have been here. But he isn't, so I will, after the wealthy territory is revealed, which I sadly can't bid more than this rifleman, I've discarded now my colonization card in order to keep a war, as I thought, who knows, maybe I should rather keep it and hope that somehow an opportunity arises. Now I'm missing the colonization card, and MV sadly can win the wealthy territory for just a night, making his internet maybe now even more big. And I decided to just go for multimedia. It felt like the best way to improve my position here. Can go for 1 upgrade, I take the reserves, the urban growth, and then play the endowment for 6 culture, preparing myself to take and finish the red cross at the next turn. I draw impact of colonies, sadly that is a bad impact for me. MV seeds, the crime wave is revealed, he gets hit by it at least. He goes for the cannons, plays the military build-up. Now I was interested to see, does he indeed have a mobile artillery tactic? And he does have, so I think trying any military push would have been quite difficult against him. Thanks to Shakespeare, he can develop the multimedia for 6 science and can then go for some upgrades, going up to 34 culture income. So Shakespeare really doing lots of work here. He takes the engineering, can develop that at the next turn, and then it's my turn with taking those cards. He also makes sure that the age ends, I don't get any more draws, so sadly I don't have any more impacts to work with. And in this turn I decided I just will take and develop the red cross, and that's my whole turn, missing out on the Olympic Games. But MV could deny the red cross from me, so I kinda have to take it now. But at this point I also didn't really have any hopes left, to be honest. Now it's MV's turn. He will take Einstein, who will give him a bit of additional culture. First of all because of developing the engineering, but also because the multimedia will score him 3 additional points for the internet. He destroys a mine, builds a religion, finishes the internet for 35 points, takes the rockets and plays the revolutionary idea. Now it's my turn, I take Pierre. I have seeded the impact of competition, so I will just build a bunch of arenas and also actually another Rifleman. I will upgrade 1 printing press to multimedia and go for another Rifleman, but at this point there's no way back for me in this game. The gap is now too big. As we will see after my turn, MV goes into the final impacts with a 42 culture lead. The first impact is the impact of competition, which gives me +5 at least. Then there is the impact of population, that's quite a strong one for MV, punishing my red cross play a little bit. And then there is the impact of happiness that I've seeded, which at least gives me +2 points against MV. And with that, the game is finished, and MV was able to win this game. I think he executed it very nicely, so well played to him. I also already relatively early felt a little bit behind. I think in this situation Machu Picchu was really insanely strong. And now the turn where MV got all of those cards for one civil action, and now it's the question, how should I, if I maybe should deny one of those cards. I think maybe taking Iron Alchemy is still what I would do, but that was just a tough setup to play against. And I just went all out into hoping that I will be the one getting Shakespeare, as I felt like my chances might be not that high if I don't get Shakespeare, so I played towards that. Sadly I didn't get Shakespeare, and as soon as I didn't get Shakespeare, it's of course the question, what was my best out? Maybe I should have just gone for Napoleon and tried something with the military and just hoped that somehow there's something possible. Maybe MV doesn't have a tactic available. Of course he does have one, and it kind of looked like he has one, but he might have not have a tactic available. Maybe I draw in a strong H3 tactic and somehow will be able to make it all work. But in 2-player games, that kind of out doesn't really work that nicely oftentimes, because then there will be just such a big culture gap to overcome that 1 war often isn't enough, and sometimes even 2 wars aren't enough to close the culture gap against a strong Shakespeare setup. So I instead went for Newton, gaining some nice benefits along the way, and then rather hoped that maybe with a good red cross and internet timing something could be possible. But at this point I think it was already very challenging playing against that Shakespeare. So I think I just in this game maybe needed the hope that I will be the one getting Shakespeare, which is of course not a great position to be in. So, but in this game I'm not sure what I could have really done different. Maybe you have an idea in the comments. Where is maybe a point where I could have gone into a completely different direction, which maybe would have allowed me to counter that big Machu Picchu civilization that is prepared to go into Shakespeare. I think it might have been my best bet to just try to go for Shakespeare myself. But MV executed it very well. I think that he went for the Kremlin was a good decision, despite me letting it stay on the 2 civil action area. I think that was just a very strong thing for him to invest into. And now then he just played it very strong and didn't really give me a chance to get a foot into the door, especially after Shakespeare was taken away. So very well played by him. And now we can also take a look at the standings before the final game is played. And yeah, I'm still in the lead in the standings, 3 points before E-Rock, but my first match ball basically I have now wasted. Now it will all come down to the two-player game between me and E-Rock. Whoever will be the winner of this game will be able to win the group and stay in the upper bracket for the next round. If for some reason there should be a tie happening, then I, with having the lead at the moment, would be the one to advance. So that will now of course be very exciting. I hope you're excited to see the conclusion of this World Championship stage. And yeah, then I say thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.